evening, Cassidy. But obviously that can't be separated out from my day job. So I am Rebecca Palmer. I have been part of Wellspring Church for 8 years. I am married to Tim, and we have 2 young children, and we're part of the congregation over in North Bushy. We've been part of the congregation there since the beginning. And my paid employment, my day job, is with New Hope as their fundraising and communications manager. And if I'm doing a good job, then you'll know that New Hope is a charity, a Christian charity in Watford, working with people who are currently experiencing homelessness. And tonight I've been asked to speak on relating to people who have less than us. And before I do that, there's a couple of things that I want to say. So the first one is that I have 3 books that have been incredibly influential and inspirational in my personal journey of seeking to live a just and generous life. So the first one, which I'm sure you'll have, is this one.
A Christian social activist called Jim
Wallace. There's a Christian social activist called Jim Wallace in the United States. In fact, his wife was British. She was the inspiration for the Vicar of Dibley. And he tells a story of when he was at college in the 60s, and he and his friends sat down with their Bible and they cut out all the references to do with justice and mercy and poverty. And then when he does this talk, he holds up that Bible and says, "You're left with a Bible full of holes." I do have a Poverty and Social Justice Bible where all the passages are highlighted, and I couldn't find it. But what you need to know is that God's heart for the poor runs throughout this book. And if we ignore those bits, then we have a book that's just full of holes. The second book, I'm back, is this one called Just Living, that came out 2 years ago by a lady called Ruth Valerio. She's now the Global Advocacy Director for a charity called Tear Fund. It's based on her PhD, so the middle section is incredibly dense theologically. The last third is full of practical advice on, and I think I'll just quote from the back because it says it far better than I could, discipleship in a globalized consumerist context. So it's really, really practical. It covers these 7 different areas, and since I read it 2 years ago, it really has changed the way I've lived in those 7 areas. And then the third book is this one, Entertaining Angels, which is Janet Hosier, who was one of the co-founders of New Hope. It's her story of how New Hope was founded. And I'm not in this book, my name's not in this book. There are a couple of people in the church who are in this book, because they've been involved with New Hope for such a long time. But this book continues to inspire me as just 2 ordinary women in this town, as they had their Bible and they were obedient and they listened to what God wanted them to do, and they stepped out in faith and they started something that has grown to something probably beyond their wildest dreams and the amount of lives that have been changed. And this book still inspires me, and I use it as a reference point of how I should be doing my job in when do we pray, how do we respond to people, how do we love people. There we go. So one more thing before we start, or 2 more things. So firstly, I love using the word pilgrim. It's also my name, it's what Palmer means, pilgrim, to describe my faith. I'm on a journey. I haven't reached some kind of living just and generously destination. So I'm speaking to myself just as much as I am to you. And then my final point is you might be sitting in this room or watching this on the video and thinking, I am that person with less. I am the person that has materially less than others. What has this got to do with me? And so for you, if you are in need, then God knows that. God hears your prayers and God loves you. And Wellspring Church is a family. And in Acts 2, in the Bible, the family help, the church look after one another and meet each other's needs. And that's what we do here at Wellspring. So there's the Compassion Fund. And so if you do have a need, please tell someone so that need can be met. And that might be you this week. It might be me next week or next month, because life is fragile and things are precarious and you never know who is going to need some help. Right, so now we get to point number 1. Point number 1 is relating to people who have less. Just because someone has less, that doesn't mean that they are less. And we probably all know that in our head, but sometimes that message doesn't get to our heart. And it can be easy to look down on people. We can think in stereotypes. But yet we're all made in the image of God. We're all loved equally by God. And whether we spend last night at New Hope Sanctuary on the Ring Road, or in an underpass, or at the Grove, or in a 3-bed semi-detached house in North Bushy, we're all equally loved by God. And yet we're also all broken. We're all desperate for God's grace and God's salvation. Each year at New Hope, we host a celebration service around the time of our birthday when we come together and basically give God the glory for everything he's done. And one of the elements I love most about that service is that we all come together equally. We have MBEs present, we have millionaires, we've had bishops, we've had people with PhDs, we've had doctors, we've had people who are struggling with addiction, we have people who are experiencing mental ill health, with people in New Hope's accommodation, we've had people who are still sleeping on the street. And yet we come together before God, and we're equal. The zeros in our bank account, the letters after our name, they don't make us right with God. At the foot of the cross, we're all equal, and all we can all do is throw ourselves at God's feet, asking for his mercy, because we're all broken, and we all need his grace. And I think that there's a liberation that comes with that once we're serving from a place of knowing our dependence on the Lord, that I'm not serving out of trying to get my own self-esteem boosted or my own needs met. There's a freedom and a liberation and an ease of serving, of knowing when to help and when not to help, because we're in that right position with God. The next point. A couple of years ago on Martin Luther King Day, which is a day in January, I thought I'd listen to a speech, which I've never done before. It's Martin Luther King Day, I'll listen to a speech. And it included this sentence, which you might have already heard. Before you get through eating breakfast in the morning, you're dependent on more than half the world. That's the way God structured it. That's the way God structured this world. So let us be concerned about others, because we are dependent on others. And so take a moment now to think, what did you have for breakfast? And what did you have for lunch? Do we know where our food comes from? Do we know who grew it? Do we know how it got from where it was growing to our plate? And what about what you're wearing, your clothes? Do you know who made your clothes? And your phone? Do you know where the materials in your phone come from? Do you know who made your phone? The way we live now has an impact on people around the world who we will never meet. The world is connected, and even more so now than it was when Martin Luther King said these words back in the 60s. Let us be concerned about others because we are dependent on others. A couple of years ago, I investigated the question, who made my clothes? I was doing a free online course with a group called Fashion Revolution. And in fact, I adapted it slightly. I asked the question, were children making my children's clothes? My children are amazing and I love them to bits. But that doesn't mean that I want another child making their clothes. So as part of this course, I created a fictional email exchange based on some of the research I discovered. So Anne is going to come up now, and we're going to, so Anne is going to play the part of Brad Hammer, who is in India, and she was the one that put together the outfit. So that is the dress in question. That is my daughter on the right. Right.
Hi Rebecca, thank you so much for the invitation to Sophie's birthday party. I can't believe that she's going to be one already. It's wonderful that she's going to be wearing the dress I made. I'm absolutely thrilled that you loved it. You're right, blue and pink is such a winning combination.
This dress is 100% cotton and made in India. It's very likely that it was made at the Best Corporation, one of Mothercare's leading suppliers. The Best Corporation is situated in Tirupur, Tamil Nadu, a region in South India which is well known for garment production.
I'm so sorry I can't make it, but I will be working. But don't panic. It's not forced overtime anymore. Things have really changed since the Flawed Fabrics report came out. Life is much better.
The Flawed Fabrics report was published in October 2014. That was when my son was 9 months old and I was shopping at Mothercare all the time. It highlights human rights violations faced by the young women and girls working in the factories and mills in Tamil Nadu. In Flawed Fabrics, Best Corporation workers are recorded as saying that they were forced to work overtime, they worked more than 60 hours per week, there were not enough toilet breaks. However, Best was the only factory investigated where workers were occasionally allowed to leave the grounds.
I'm just doing some overtime to earn a bit more money to send back to the village for my parents.
The young women and girls who are recruited to work in the garment sector in Tamil Nadu are usually from impoverished rural villages where families desperately need the extra income and one less mouth to feed.
You're so lucky having your family close by. I miss mine so much, but at least I can call them on my mobile for a chat.
Flawed Fabric states that in many of the factories and mills, the young women and girls, the workers are mainly female and the supervisors mainly male, were not permitted to use mobile phones and could only telephone agreed phone numbers. However, Best employees were the only workers who were allowed to have mobiles.
Children grow up so quickly, don't they? It won't be long until that dress is too small for her. I wonder what you'll buy next. Love, Rahama. It's going to be my birthday soon too. I will be 18.
A more recent report from 2016 stated that in 2012, the Tirupur People's Forum estimated that the majority of the female workforce were younger than 18 years old, with many less than 14. And this is my reply. Hi Rahama, thank you so much for your email. I'm glad that life has improved recently. To be honest, it's been hard to find out what your working and living conditions are actually like. I'd like to see your factory and your hostel for myself.
According to the Forced Labour Report, human rights violations still exist in the Tamil Nadu garment industry.
I'd like to visit you, to meet you face to face, and to say thank you for all the clothes you've made for my children over the last 3.5 years. The everyday vests, the tiny sleep suits that were worn for what felt like 5 minutes, and the special occasion clothes, such as that dress that I knew I just had to buy as soon as I saw it. I'm sorry, it just makes me cry. I hope that conditions have genuinely improved since Flawed Fabrics were published. I'm pleased to read that Mothercare now released an anti-slavery statement, and earlier this year sent out a responsible sourcing handbook to all suppliers. I'm reassured by their new factory assessments programme.
The top issues identified were excessive working hours, too many consecutive working days, issues over minimum wages or overtime payments, and health and safety issues.
It's good to read that Mothercare suppliers in vertically owned supply mills have agreed to only hire workers who are 18 or older. It does look as if conditions are changing for you, and I hope they continue to do so. Love, Rebecca. Thank you, Anne. So I'd encourage you to be curious and to ask the questions, because we're relating to people who have less than us all the time without even thinking about it, without even being aware of it. And as we think back to Jesus' story of the Good Samaritan, when he says, "Who is my neighbour?" Well, I'd say that in this global village that we're now living in, everyone is my neighbour. And it can be overwhelming when we think about the world like that. And sometimes the easiest thing is just to pretend we don't know and to bury our head in the sand and ignore the poverty in our own community, ignore the global poverty, ignore the injustices. Ruth Valerio, who wrote Just Living, she has a great saying, which is do what you can and then do a little bit more. So I'd encourage you to take some steps to live in a way which helps and honour those who have less. to live in a way that gives others dignity and respect, to live simply and generously, to consume less and to consume better, to find practical ways of helping your neighbour. And I'm saying this all to myself as well. What one step could you take this week? Who are the people that you are already interacting with who have less than you in a material sense? And when I say interacting with, that means the people that made your breakfast cereal. Those in Watford and those around the world. Who is in need? So I found a few examples. So Watford Food Bank, they come here, people come here, and they're looking for sugar, canned fish, canned meat and fruit. Could you buy these next time you were shopping? That's a really easy way of helping people. Watford and Three Rivers Refugee Project, they're looking for volunteers with a variety of skills for as little as an hour a week. Donations as well as food and toiletries. For New Hope, in the winter we ran a winter night shelter, and for a week it was here in this room. We'll be doing that again this winter. Is that something you could help with? Give up a couple of nights so that people can sleep somewhere warm and dry rather than on the streets. And there are many more. There are people in the church involved with local and national charities such as Peace Hospice Care, Home Start and Home for Good. They're a charity promoting the fostering and adopting of vulnerable children. And I'm sure they'd love to talk to you about opportunities to get involved. A refugee who needs a friend, a family needing food while benefits are sorted out, a child in the care system waiting to be adopted, a person sleeping on the streets of Watford. How can we make generosity a way of life? Are we prepared to let God interrupt our lives and our plans so that we can be the answer to someone's prayers? If you need more practical ideas to help you, then have a look at Just Living, the Ruth Valerio book, have a look at Tear Fund's website, and pray. Ask God to show you and look around prayerfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, for that. Can we have the questions now that we're going to use for our discussions? So you can choose one or more of those questions for your group. You may wish to write these down. We'll leave it up there anyway. So the first question is, what affects the way you see people, or what changes the way you see people? Question 2, discuss the Martin Luther King quote. Which one? That was the one to do with the having breakfast in the morning and half it being dependent on half the world, yes?
Yes.
We'll put that up a bit later on as well. How does this relate to your view of the world? And question 3, what one step could you take this week to live in a way that helps those who have less? So if you want to have a discussion in your groups for about 15, 20 minutes.